So far in the timeline of the history of Zimbabwe, we have talked about the Shona, who were the first inhabitants of Zimbabwe, and the Ndebele, who migrated from South Africa and settled in the country in 1840. By this time, Europeans had already started exploring Africa, claiming land for themselves. After clashing and fighting for the ownership of African land, Europeans had a meeting known as the Berlin Conference, where they divided Africa amongst themselves. This is also known as the Scramble for Africa. The British were in most of the southern region of Africa. They immediately sent a trio led by Charles Rudd to deceive the Zimbabweans into signing the Rudd Concession, which gave the British land rights to Zimbabwe. They later traveled to Zimbabwe in what was known as the Pioneer Column and settled amongst the Shona in Mashonaland, whom they exploited and ill-treated. To conquer the whole country, they sparked a war with the Ndebele in Matabeleland, in what was known as the Matabele War, which we are discussing in this episode. So make sure you watch the previous episodes to get a full background of what we'll be talking about today. The Matabele War, also known as the First Matabeleland War, or the War of Disposition, was between the Ndebele and the British South Africa Company and started in 1893. The war began with serious preparations from both sides. Lobengula recalled his army, which was on a mission outside Zimbabwe. He positioned them strategically in areas covering Fort Salisbury, Fort Victoria, and Bechuanaland, around his land Matabeleland. In total, he had 18,000 men. Led by Commandant Colonel Goold-Adams, the British settlers also positioned their army at Fort Salisbury under Major Forbes, Fort Victoria under Captain Allan Wilson, and in the Lower Veld under Captain Rafe. The British had 1,100 troops. Rhodes had sent 1,000 troops on horses from the Cape Colony. In addition to this, they were assisted by 200 Tswana from Bechuanaland, now known as Botswana, and there were volunteers from the Cape Colony and 400 Shona who already resented the Ndebele. The Victoria Agreement was signed by all white settlers who participated in this war. This agreement stated that they would each get 6,000 acres of free land, 15 gold claims, and a share of cattle to be looted from the Ndebele people. On 25 October 1893, the Ndebele attacked a British lagger in Matabeleland at night, and from the beginning, it was clear that the Ndebele spears were no match against the white settlers' firepower. The Ndebele suffered a heavy loss of their men, whilst the British had no casualties. The settlers began their march to seize the Ndebele capital. The Ndebele were repelled from all their points in Matabeleland towards Lobengula's capital. True to their fighting spirit, the Ndebele did not give up. They would strategize after every loss and return back to the battlefield. On 31 October 1893, the Ndebele came to Bembesi by the night and ambushed another lagger there. The battle was severe and lasted throughout the night. But the Ndebele lost once again. They had firepower, but they did not know how to use it effectively, and they had a limited supply of ammunition. When Lobengula heard that 3 of his military units had been defeated, he panicked and fled from the capital on 4 November 1893. This marked the fall of the Ndebele kingdom for the British settlers and the official colonization of the whole of Zimbabwe by the British. They hoisted their flag in Bulawayo. Matabeleland and Mashonaland were combined to form Rhodesia in honor of the British South African Company leader, Cecil John Rhodes. A British South Africa Company administration was set up in Matabeleland, headed by Jameson, who was already in charge of Mashonaland at the beginning of 1894. The white settlers continued to pursue Lobengula to capture him through Captain Wilson, but the Ndebele tracked him down and killed Captain Wilson and his team. Lobengula was never captured. He died in 1894 of smallpox and a hunted fugitive, a true heartbreak for the Ndebele people. The British stopped the Ndebele from appointing a successor for Lobengula, hence leaving them without a king. They made sure the Ndebele would never get a chance to come together and rally another powerful army. After the war, the Ndebele kingdom had been greatly weakened and a significant population displaced. The British Loot Committee was formed in March 1894 to raid the Ndebele farmers and loot land, mines, and a staggering 280,000 cattle. The British South Africa Company police force was introduced in Matabeleland. The Ndebele were forced to abide by the same harsh laws set already in Mashonaland, including the tax system. Failure to pay tax resulted in forced labor. After 1894, mining activity increased sharply. More European farmers migrated from Britain to Zimbabwe and would be given good farming land upon arrival. The blacks were displaced and moved to areas which had bad farming soil and poor rains. Jameson created the Native Department, which was in charge of coercing black labor and collecting tax. The British South Africa Company continued to exploit the friction between the Ndebele and the Shona, on the assumption that a divided people would never plan to rally against them. They recruited black police officers who were to work solely for the British government. The Ndebele would police the Shona, and the Shona were placed in charge of policing the Ndebele. On top of this, the white settlers were free to do whatever they pleased. They would sexually abuse black women and would forcefully take them as concubines. There was no implemented law to protect the blacks, hence it would go unpunished. However, a black man seen with a white woman was deemed to have committed a crime punishable by death. The settlers built the railway line they had always dreamed of, which passed through Matabeleland to Cape Town. The British South Africa Company increased the company's share value and was saved from bankruptcy by the Ndebele cattle, which they looted after the war. Communication channels were introduced in Matabeleland as a telegraph line was erected in Bulawayo. The story is just beginning. Unbeknown to the British South Africa Company, the Ndebele had not given up. After the disappearance of Lobengula, his wife, Senior Queen Lozikeyi, secretly took up commandship of what was left of the Ndebele army and was fully determined to get their land back. So stay tuned for the next episode, which will be on the uprising of the Zimbabwean people, which led to the First Chimurenga War. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like below.